Hello, 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 and welcome to Biz Over Tea with Dr. Lisa and today's guest, Trenelle Lyiscott of Cytellix. To kick off our season one, we are here getting ready for Cybersecurity Month, the month of October, where we protect our businesses, our data, and our personal identities from malfeasance and so on and so forth that really try to get out there and either just mess up your day or at worst mess up your finances and could really do some real damage to your business. So, Trenelle, you are a cyber support manager at Cytellix. Please tell us about yourself and about Cytellix, and let us welcome you here today. Thank you for coming.
Yes, well, thanks so much for having me. Yes, Cybersecurity Awareness Month is definitely kicking into gear. So excited to be here with you and all of your folks that's going to be streamed to talk about cybersecurity. So yes, I am a cyber support manager, and what that means is on the front end, I'm talking to small, medium, large businesses over all their concerns. Whether it's I have a remote workforce, whether it's I have concerns about what my team members are doing in my network, whether I have been hacked before and I'm a little bit more anxious about it, or one of my friends got hacked and I'm concerned about it. So I'm here to talk about that. Cytellix, definitely an awesome organization, right? For sure. I've been with them now for 7 years. And we have created, in essence, a tool and a program and process to help small and medium businesses with cybersecurity. We understand that it can be definitely overwhelming and time consuming. We want to make sure to make it easy for them. So super excited to be here. Definitely excited to jump right into this awesome topic that we came up with safeguarding your small business from cybercrime and hacking attacks. So with that, I'll definitely jump in, and then I'm definitely looking forward to some Q&A as we go along. So agenda, right?
Sure thing. Go for it.
Perfect. So my goal is definitely to educate business leaders and, even folks that want to start businesses, right? I think in the pandemic, we've definitely kind of kicked off a lot of folks wanting to start businesses, which is a great idea. Entrepreneurship is awesome. At the same time, it's protecting it, right? Because you just never know what could potentially happen. So we're going to educate today on the importance of having an active program in your environment to, in essence, safeguard your intellectual property. I know sometimes it can come off that only big business need this type of stuff, but small ones are actually the most vulnerable, which is something I'll dive into. So here's kind of the overall agenda. Very high level here. We're going to jump into what is even cybersecurity, what are some of the common cybersecurity risks to your company, the risks to avoid, how to protect it, some next step and best practices, which I'm probably most excited about to help you get going. And then overall, who is Cytellix, and really talk about an open discussion at the end of it and throughout and some upcoming events you all can plug into. So what is cybersecurity? Like I said, let's start there, right? So here's the definition from IBM. Cybersecurity is the practice of protecting critical systems and sensitive information from digital attacks. And I think that's something that sounds like a lot of words and kind of heavy, but it's just about protecting your data. It's really what it is. Cybersecurity attacks are all done digitally. It's not like a typical attack where, someone may be, coming into your environment and doing something crazy or, breaking down a window. Definitely nothing like that. It's all digital. And that's why it's so scary, if anything. So I'm going to take some time to kind of dig into some of these that I know I get the calls. Most times potential clients are the ones calling me in the middle of the day or middle of the night a lot of times and telling me what's been going on and what they're concerned about. So here are some of them, and I'll dig into a few of them that I know I hear about a ton when it comes to especially small and medium businesses. Password attacks, right? So you think about, we always buy these different devices or cameras or Alexas. We're putting into our office as a way to just, make things more modern, which are great. But social engineering of those devices are so common. Typically, those devices come with a very simple password, password 1234. I know a lot of folks joke about it, but that's a very common password. And you'll be amazed at how that alone taps into companies being hacked or breached. I'll never forget, this was probably about 3 years ago, we got the call from a client that had a fish tank, a modern fish tank in their office. Office was absolutely beautiful, and their fish tank was connected to their Wi-Fi, of course, because I guess that's how they monitor the water temperature and all this great stuff. Very, very cool. But the fish tank was hacked. and that same Wi-Fi was attached to their accounting system. Things you just never think about, like it's a fish tank, but the Internet of Things and the connectivity of everything now, as I know we want it to be convenient, but again, that creates a lot of vulnerability. So password attacks. For you CEOs and C-suite teams, I know you're traveling a lot, especially now that things are starting to open back up, and you may be going to conferences and taking your work phone and your work device. Well, because of just your role and your title, you're more prone to endpoint attacks. Hackers are looking at your website, seeing who's who, right? And you think you're just promoting your team members, which are great, but at the same time, you're also tweeting and posting about we're going to be at this conference here or that conference there. Your team members could be leaving their laptop bags down. I mean, it's kind of crazy how easy it is to attack sometimes. And again, we get those calls all the time about what's going on and how my president's computer got hacked or email got compromised, again, because of the fact that being a high profile organization creates additional vulnerabilities, right? Denial of service, I won't spend too much time on. You hear about those a lot when you notice, hey, Twitter went down or Instagram went down or Facebook is being a little funky. Denial of service is usually the situation there. I do want to talk about third-party and supply chain attacks. So typically, small and medium companies are all using some type of outside vendor for things, whether it's, hey, I'm using someone to help me create my website. I'm using someone else to do my security program in-house to make sure the security system is all attached. Those are all third-party vendors, right? So the crazy part about that is it's as much ease of things, they're making it easier for us to do our work as a small or medium business owner. It's also creating potential vulnerabilities. And I say that because if they have access to your Wi-Fi, your network, things of that nature, they too can also be putting you at risk, which again, it's kind of becomes everything is risky, which is, the charge of being a business owner, I would say. I tapped in already to IoT attacks. IoT means Internet of Things. So that is, again, all those devices, the cameras in your environment, your laptops, your cell phones, these smart devices, smart screens in your conference room, your phones. Those are all IoT devices. And as I mentioned, a lot of them come with pre-canned passwords. And it's very easy for attackers to, in essence, compromise and tap into those devices. Printers, fax machines. I think, some companies still have those around too, but fax machines is also a big part. And then I want to talk about patch management. So patch management is something that when I first entered into this space, it's something I didn't pay a lot of attention to, I'll be honest. My laptop would tell me, hey, we have some updates for you. Click on it and you have to reboot your system. And just out of inconvenience, I would delay it, right? Just happenstance. And then I started seeing how many vulnerabilities and cyber attacks are as a result of lack of patch management. You'll be amazed at how many companies are, in essence, shut down, closed because they didn't patch the right computers or patch the right devices. So, for example, Microsoft, I believe, has Patch Tuesday. And what that means is every Tuesday, Microsoft puts on their public website that everyone sees, the good hackers, the bad hackers, and everyone in between. They get to see what devices need to be patched. What that does is, of course, it's very easy to go on there if I am a attacker and say, okay, well, I'm going to put out a simple little bot and I'm going to just spit it out into the cyber world, into the internet, and see what companies have not patched these devices. And for you, you may be thinking, especially if you're a CEO or a C-suite, hey, I have a lot more other things to do. I'm busy. We're trying to run a company. We're trying to, do all these different things, which of course is very important, but protecting your company is also as important. I always say it's not just an IT issue. It's a business continuity issues, and that is where everyone has to be on the same page of keeping your company safe. So that's a big one that I see cause a lot of damage. In essence, here it says it. It's a hole. It's a hole. It's in essence you having a nice house and leaving a window open. It's the exact same thing. So making sure you're doing that is very important. And then form jacking. That's something, if you have an e-commerce business, is very popular. If you think about it, if you have a website and you have clients or potential clients filling out all these different forms with all the information in there. Again, that's personal identifiable information. That's also what attackers want. Hence why there's so many identity theft problems in the world, not even just the US, right? So that's a huge one. Phishing and ransomware, I want to dive into a bit, and I'm going to show you guys a quick little video to kind of explain those. I I see that so often now. It's kind of a thing where I like to show you all exactly what that means and what is actually happening in your environment when you're going through a phishing attack or a ransomware attack. We hear about it on the news all the time. This city got attacked, this city got ransomed, and you hope that you're going to get your information back, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So with that being said, I'll proceed on. So phishing, right? I know we've definitely seen that over the years, and it's been a lot more where most companies and employees are a little irritated at the amount of emails that come through your email box. Those are all phishing attempts. A hacker is just hoping that one of your employees or you yourself, as being an owner of some sort, just clicks on it. That's all they're hoping for. It's so simple and so easy to do, but it can get even a bit more granular than that, where it can look like it's coming from a current employee or a coworker, and someone in accounting or HR is asking about a certain employee, and you respond back to that email, not paying attention to who it came from and confirming that it actually is the person that it's supposed to be. I know something that I always tell my partners and clients is, if it looks a little suspicious, give the person a call. Just make sure, this person has sent an email, because we see it all the time. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it does come from executives, because executives are usually the one leading the charge in an organization, and team members want to make sure they're following up with urgency to respond back to, hey, my president needed this, or my CEO needed this, or this person of director of business needed this, and I want to get back to them. But again, confirming that it's coming from the right person is so important. But that's one of the easiest ways that hackers are getting into environments, is by phishing, because again, our websites show a lot of information about our companies. A lot of times they have the email addresses to our C-suite folks, as well as the fact that it looks like it's a great thing and we're making ourselves accessible. It also, as I mentioned, creates a lot of vulnerabilities, because that is where a lot of the problems are coming into our environments, as through emails. So I always like to emphasize, paying attention to that. Taking stuff off your website, it's also important, not having so much data on that, because again, you're creating unnecessary headaches within an organization.
I hear that a lot when I recommend to a client that they not put their entire employee directory on the site, and but people need to be able to reach us, and they're like, yeah, put your phone number down at the bottom, or have a catch-all email that will get everything. And as you speak on phishing, my elder son called me a week or two ago and said, "Hey, Mom, I think I opened a virus." I'm like, "Have I taught you nothing?" He's like, "Well, I was at work and I wasn't thinking, so I opened it." And I said, "That's exactly what they want. You're busy, you're distracted, you're just flipping through your phone, and you open it. And you didn't just open the email, you opened the file. Why? You didn't buy anything." And he said, "Yeah, I know. It looks really weird, and I knew I didn't order anything." And I said, "Why'd you open it?" It's better that you miss an important email than and accidentally delete it, rather than open up something that opens up your entire address book to vulnerability. So I'm right there with you. No more distracted emailing, please.
And you hit on a couple good things, right? Have a catch-all for all the emails. So have an info@companyxyz.com. That is way better. List that at the email for all of your C-suite or all your employees on your site, because then you can actually filter it out and say, hey, this looks suspicious. We can block this. Make sure our firewalls are not letting this person continue to email us. So that's so important. Like you mentioned with your son, distracted, right? That's what they're betting on. That is literally what they're betting on. If you look at the times of day those phishing emails typically come in, a lot of them don't come in during midnight till 6 a.m. They're coming in right after lunchtime, late mornings, again, where everyone is usually just busy, just trying to click through and clear out their inboxes as quickly as possible for the day. So very strategic, right? I tell folks, hacking is a business. It's not, someone, there are some folks still in their mom's basement doing it, but they're actually they have buildings, they have, 401k plans, they have the whole thing, because it's become a business because of how much they're able to gain in just, the recovery funds, right? You think about, I'll jump into ransomware in a bit, but paying a ransom, that could be from very little amount of money to thousands and millions of dollars, depending on if it's a really big organization. So you
Yes,
think about that.
so many horror stories.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I won't put my friends and family on blast, but many horror stories. Funds were exchanged that I before they called me, even.
We hear those stories too. I've had a lot of people, individual users call and say, hey, I got an email saying my friend was stuck in Italy somewhere and they needed funds. So I sent them yeah, I get those too. So
Yeah,
they're doing what they can do to get our attention. And some folks are unfortunately falling for it.
exactly.
So I'll jump right into ransomware. So that's another
Mhm.
one that is a hotbed, and we'll get into it here. So ransomware, right? As the little video mentioned, the most expensive cybersecurity attack that a company can undergo. I mean, we have seen, like I mentioned, a few seconds ago, small amounts of money paid. And what a ransomware attack does, it just shuts down everything, every single thing. No logins work. You have something on the screen that says to let you know you're being under attack, but you can't do anything on any of your devices. So some of the recovery things are proactive things you can do as an organization, no matter the size, right? No matter the size. Always have a backup. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is patching. Patching, because that's usually how they get in there and they're able to lock down your system. It's so important to have those things in place as a company owner because the cost, here it says that the cost of building that is very expensive. The latest numbers I saw for a small business to recover from a cyber attack, not specifically which type of attack, is around $500,000. There is no company, small company that's hanging around saying, I have extra $500,000 just waiting. This is my emergency fund for ransomware attacks or patch management attack. No company is doing that, right? But it's extremely, extremely expensive. We get those calls after the fact, like, hey, our computers has this message on it, none of them are working. And unfortunately, when that happens, you can either pay, or if you have a backup, you just tell the hacker, hey, get lost, and you reboot and wipe everything in your system and re-download all your backups. But if you don't have a backup, you're at their mercy. They can tell you, you're hoping they'll give you your information after you pay them. But the truth about it is they probably don't have a ton of integrity and they're probably not very truthful given what they did to your company. So we've had the calls where, hey, we paid them $30,000 and they still haven't unlocked it. That's part of it. That's the hope, that you hope they're going to unlock your information, because again, a lot of these hackers do not have any idea what kind of company they're hacking. They're just putting out bots and hoping someone bites. And when someone bites, they're like, oh, perfect, lockdown. What do we want to charge? So it's one of those things where the best way to do this is to be proactive. And like I said, I hate hearing the stories and getting the calls after the fact. And a lot of times companies have to close their doors because they just can't afford it, whether it's paying the ransom or recovering from the ransomware attack. So this is a big one. This is definitely a big one. These last two I shared, phishing and ransomware, are definitely the ones that typically take a company down. We see it quite often, I would say.
That is very sad. So everybody out there watching and listening, proactive is the way to go.
It's always the cheapest. It's always the cheapest. So I want to kind of chat about some of these risks to avoid. I won't go into grand detail here. You guys will see the slides and all that as well. But, there are, of course, business risks, right? Stemming from not having a cyber program, which is so important. And then depending on your industry you're in, you may have regulatory compliance issues. Of course, here are some here: SEC, GDPR, FFIEC, SOX. I know California has a Privacy Act. I've seen a big organization got sued by them recently just for not complying with this, right? And then you also can potentially face the problem of having a violation of a False Claims Act. Certain industries require that too. And if you do, in essence, tell the company or the organization, like, hey, we are doing this, and they found you're not doing that, you can actually have a violation against you, which is never fun. So the penalties, the fines, the legal impacts, something that has been definitely turning the tide here is a lot of CEOs and C-suite have been facing fines and personal jail time for cyber attacks, because again, that information is so critical to just the health of our nation, right? So they're probably being held against the fire for not complying. And I think something that's really important here is, as a business owner, you want to be able to know what's going on in your business. We want to know our numbers, our finances. We want to know, how the website doing, what's the traffic doing, how's our social media doing. But you want to know if you have any cyber weaknesses. And I say that because even though it sounds like I don't really want want to know? You want to know because it's some of those things where you can't manage what you can't see. It's the same thing with employees and team members. If you're not, knowing what your team members are doing and how they're performing, and so we have daily reviews and things like that. Same thing with your cyber program. You want to know what's going on because the recovery is so important in the event of a cyber attack. Of course, being able to identify the attack is, of course, number one priority. You want to be able to identify that quickly. But on the back end of that, being able to recover quickly is your best chance for success there. So having both in tandem is so important. And that all deals with having a program going that's actively running and going. And I know something that's been a really hot topic lately, again, in the pandemic and kind of going into post-pandemic is cyber insurance, right? Just like our car insurance, everyone's seeing how these attacks are happening and people are running to these different companies trying to get cyber insurance. For one, it's not cheap anymore. I always say that because I remember when I first got to with Cytellix, we were trying to tell our clients, go get cyber insurance. It was very affordable. And it was kind of, I don't need it. Just like car insurance. Right? Like, I don't need it. I'm okay.
I'm a great driver.
Exactly. My company is safe. It's so small. We only have 2 employees. We don't need it. We're fine. We're just getting going. Now, given everything that's going on the past few years and the amount of hacks and breaches that have happened, getting a cyber insurance policy is very expensive, but also they're also verifying that you actually have a cyber program going. So you can't just go in there and say, like, with car insurance, right? You can't go in there and say, I don't even have a car yet, I just need car insurance. They're not going to give you car insurance. You don't even have a car. But the same thing with cybersecurity. It's like they're not going to give you a cybersecurity insurance plan if you don't even have a cyber program already running. Again, going back to the word I used a few minutes ago, proactive cybersecurity. They are, because they're not trying to pay out, and they're seeing how many hacks and breaches are happening. They're being very cautious about who is getting cyber insurance. So I always say, again, these are things that the cyber insurance policy companies are already aware of. So again, they're making it a lot more difficult to get these insurance policies. And it's something that I've definitely seen here in the last 2 or 3 years is the expense of it. So what do you do? And this is what I want to jump into here for sure. I want to take some time to kind of comb through some of this here. You want to adopt a cyber framework. And I say adopt a cyber framework because every now and then I'll have a company owner or, just a team leader that's managing their cybersecurity or IT, and they'll tell me, hey, we have our own metrics. And I always think that's always a good thing to have. But again, you want it to be going against something that's already been proven. So, the only reason that these frameworks exist is because that the due diligence of making sure they were solid frameworks has already stood the test of time. So here are some things you want to make sure to have. So on the right side, I have some of the common industry frameworks. NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is literally the foundation of, I would say, don't fully quote me here, I would say about 90% of all the frameworks in the US. It's a measurement of everything. So if you want to measure what is this block of gold? How big is this and how much does this weigh? NIST actually has the program to measure that. But they have a cybersecurity framework that applies to every business, any industry, any size. They have a framework for those businesses. So I think that's a great place to start. And then if you're looking to get into different industries, of course, different industries have different things. Of course, HIPAA, if you try to go out the country, you got GDPR, ISO. I mean, there's so many of them now that have cybersecurity components. But I always recommend companies that don't know where to start with NIST, because NIST is the foundation. And if you need to add on top of it, at least you have your foundation already in place. Here I highlighted, get to know your cybersecurity score. Again, don't be afraid of it. You want to know what it is against these frameworks. So most of them have a rating of 1 to 100. You want to know where you are, because then you can actually have a plan put in place to help you get there and actually progress. Very similar to if you have sales metrics. And by the end of the year, we need to have this amount of sales. Again, quarterly or monthly, bi-weekly, you're having these kind of status checks to know where your team is, how your team is progressing, and if you guys are in range to hit those goals. Same thing with cybersecurity, but again, this is keeping your company in business and keeping it safe. Having a tool or process in place for you to be able to see that cybersecurity posture is very important. Seeing your compliance score in real time. I always say that. You never want to have stale cybersecurity scores because it changes daily. It can change daily. So I'll have companies that come to me and say, I just want a quick assessment. That's it. Okay, we'll assess you today. You may look fabulous today. Tomorrow, it can be a different story. And that's the part about what's crazy about cybersecurity. It's never a point in time. It's always ongoing. So I think sometimes companies forget that part of it. This isn't a set it and forget it. This is definitely something you want to keep your thumbs on. Of course, having incident management program and reporting. So in the event, again, having a program in place. So in the event there is an attack or a breach, you and your team members know what to do. Having that playbook, having those dry runs of like, hey, okay, if our printer's attacked, what do we do? If someone's at the office, unplug, whatever that is, having those things in place, because again, as I mentioned, outside of identifying when the cyber attack happened, being able to recover from it quickly is going to guarantee your success. Not guarantee, but make it more likely that you're going to be successful coming out of that attack. And I mentioned here, if having these things, of course, business intelligence, that's basically making sure that you know where your crown jewels are. Right. I always like to emphasize that. I go into organizations and, they'll ask me, hey, you want to connect to our Wi-Fi? I'm okay. I don't need to connect to your Wi-Fi. And then they tell me, oh, yeah, Susan in accounting can't connect to the Wi-Fi. So you are going to have an outside vendor on the same Wi-Fi as your accounting system. Not great ideas. So things like that, knowing where your important data resides and keeping that safe, keeping that separate from everything else. I know right now there's a ton of remote workers and things like that right now going on. And it's great. I love the fact they have that flexibility. At the same time, as an owner, you have to make sure that they're actually paying, they're also being cautious about what they're doing on their laptops and their computers. And I say that because a lot of times we can get caught up in, hey, I need to check this on Amazon really quick. Hey, I need to check this Facebook status really quick. All of our computer devices, work devices, which is a big no-no. So something I recommend, again, when it comes to business intelligence, is having those type of things blocked from employees' devices to ensure to kind of give your own company the best success of not having to have these extra vulnerabilities independent of what's already going on when it comes to cyber attacks and such. So that's something I definitely want to recommend here, is just adopting a framework, because again, at the top it says it standardizes things, it gives you a central measurement, and then visibility. And the visibility, again, you cannot manage what you can't see. It's in the air, it's hidden from you. So you want to know what's going on, which is so important. So here's some things to kind of dive into that, right? So when you're out there looking for, okay, where do I even start here? And I'll spend some time on here to kind of highlight a couple of things, again, that I see all the time with companies of all sizes. You want to have a turnkey solution. So turnkey solution meaning that avoid the urge, I would say, to do the Costco model of cybersecurity. And what I mean by that is going and buying a bunch of things, plugging it in and saying, I've done it. It's going, it's running. Because what happens is there is no correlation happening. If you have 5, 6, 7 different products running or tools running that you probably spend a good amount of money on, but there's no correlation there, meaning they're not speaking to each other. They're not telling you, hey, this device is not patched. And it also has an open port here that's also giving us problem. And hey, this employee is also, just decided to put their 2-week notice in and they're doing suspicious things on their computer. If you don't have these different things talking to each other, what happens is they're all in their own silos, and you can never create the story. So you can never track down and find out where the problems happen. And then you're dealing with a bunch of alerts with no actionable steps. So when you have a turnkey solution, it brings all that under one umbrella, which is the important part. Top-down visibility, right? It's like you got to know where your most riskiest folks are. As I mentioned earlier, C-suite, especially if you're traveling a lot, plugging into a lot of different conferences. I'm hoping avoiding coffee shop Wi-Fi's. I always say that, avoid those. But that's something that a lot of, C-suite typically does. Like, I'm going to pop to this coffee shop. It's quieter in here. Take this call. Please don't connect to the Wi-Fi. Use your phone as a hotspot. Do something. Do not connect to the open Wi-Fi. And I always just don't do it. And I say that because I just had a meeting with a lady, and she was actually on a cruise ship, and she had to get some work done. So she tapped into the cruise ship Wi-Fi. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Basically burn your computer. But I made sure it wasn't safe. And she thought it was. She was like, oh, it's safe. There was only a couple of us in there. And I'm like, that's not the point. That's not the point. These are open Wi-Fi. They give it to you free for a reason, because they're able to see everything you're doing on it. Hence why it's free. That's what they're getting on the back end of it. So pay attention to that. I already mentioned making sure you're following a framework. That's very important. Identify the risk and then posture changes in real time. right? So I always like to emphasize with companies that may be going through a ton of transition, that's a time to have your eyes glued to your cybersecurity. You may have a couple of disgruntled employees that can do things, do damage in your organization. You may just have, old laptops and old devices of employees that may have left and you forgot to take it off your network. If you're going through a merger or acquisition, before you merge or acquire, don't bring anything into that environment until you know it's safe. I know that's a lot that's been going on lately with a lot of mergers. And then on the right side of here, I talk about some things that, of course, are trigger buttons. So affordable, right? Making sure it's affordable. Whatever that looks like for you, making sure it's affordable. But it needs to be something that's built into your yearly budget. It's not a, hey, in 2022, we're going to do it, but 2023, we're going to drop it. It needs to be an ongoing budget line item. A couple other things here I'll dive into. Low impact. So you don't want something that's bringing anything to your environment that's taking away a lot of your bandwidth as such. Low touch, but high ROI. So what that means is getting the reporting you need, getting the alerts you need, getting the program processes, the remediation plans that you need. So you can actually always have, again, a pulse on your cybersecurity, which is, again, so important. And continuous assessments, I talked about that. It's not a one and done. You want to always be in the groove of knowing, okay, we're getting better. Oh, this month we're a little worse. Let's get back on the train again and get back better. And then having a solution that you can actually add other things to, right? So right now you may be a company that has 5 employees, but your roadmap may say, hey, in the next year or so, I want to get up to 30 or 20. So having a program and solution that you can add things to, but it's already complete and turnkey as it is right now. But in the event you need to add other things to it, you could. So a lot of times I'll have a company that call me and say, hey, I bought this stuff. That's always how they start. Hey, I bought this stuff. And now I need to, add some things to it, but they're not letting me. So then they're locked into an extra restricted program that isn't fit for their business anymore. So from the start, making sure whatever solution you're going with is turnkey and it can be added, things can be added into it as needed as you continue to grow and become a bigger organization. Because I know that's typically the goal for most small companies. So let's talk about next steps to address these concerns, right? So I always recommend that small and medium companies engage with a managed security as a service provider. So of course we use a ton of acronyms, but they're in essence the MSSP. And what they do is in essence, they bring all this to you. And in essence, it's turnkey. It becomes something that's quickly able to, in essence, plug and play, but it gives you a full depth and breadth of a full-on cybersecurity program. So that usually includes policies, technologies, alerts, all of that comes in one. And then as a business owner, you want to highlight the concerns that apply, right? So whether it's cyber compliance, because you're like, hey, I'm trying to tap into this industry or that industry, and I have an upcoming audit. They want to make sure I'm actually good enough to do the work that I said I can do. Or, hey, I had a previous cyber issue. I had, ransomware, malware, again, exactly what we talked about today. Or just the business needs a complete risk program. And that's really where to start. Like, hey, I'll be honest, I just need help. I don't know where to start. Or then you have, again, that Costco model of having a bunch of tools, and then you have some people on some tools, and now it's become way too expensive. Because the truth about it is, if you were to hire a cybersecurity expert to be a full-time employee, you're looking at quite a ton of money to be able to pay that person. Hence why using an outside MSSP creates a more affordable solution for you. And then here's the one, number 5, I hear all the time. I have these tools, but it's not working. It's probably because it's not configured properly. And that's a big part. And then again, the ROI needs to be cost effective, right? Because as a small business, we understand that budgets and all are a big part of it, right? So these are some things that will help kind of for next step as you're vetting out different providers and such. These are things that you want to bring to their attention that may be concerns of yours as you go forward. And I'll pause here to see if there are any questions, Lisa, that you want to ask before I go on.
Yes. So as you're saying, we're addressing the cyber concerns. What are some things that I can look for when choosing a cyber partner? How do I know that they know what they're doing?
So that's a really great question. So the crazy part about what's been going with cybersecurity, because it's been in essence the hottest topic for the past few years, a lot of IT consultants are now calling themselves cyber experts. IT and cyber are two separate things. they work together. When they work together, it's a great thing, a great situation. But there are two separate things. IT, and not to diminish, not to talk down about it, but IT is going to keep your lights on. It's going to keep the computers on, passwords, logins right, configuration of your laptops when you have a new employee coming on, decommission of those laptops when the employee leaves. Cybersecurity is watching your network, seeing what's going on that it should be a red flag. It's creating those use cases of, hey, here's our typical business cadence. So we do work at 4 a.m. in the morning. Or, hey, we don't work at 4 a.m. in the morning. So in the event you see something going on at 4 a.m. in the morning, I need to be alerted on. Or it could be assessments. How good or not so good are we against this framework? Way different, again, than what IT is doing. So two separate things. So something you can look up for when you're vetting these cybersecurity experts is, what is your background in doing cyber assessments? What frameworks are you familiar with? How long does it typically take a company to get into compliance? Because these are questions and answers that a cybersecurity expert would know. And of course, testimonials are always important. You want to make sure they have worked with companies in your same industry, because then that gives you the kind of the reason to say, okay, this company or this client or this provider actually knows what my needs are. Because cybersecurity folks should be bringing to you what concerns you should be having for your industry. They should be aware of the pulse of your industry, what's going on, what are some of the most common hacks and breaches that they see. Again, these type of questions will of course pique their interest, but they should be able to answer that. So that's some of the things I would say would help on the front end to make sure you're talking to the right folks.
Okay. So you mentioned that hiring a full-time cybersecurity expert is going to cost some money.
Yes.
So what should we budget to spend on cybersecurity? What kind of investment should we expect? Especially if, let's say for marketing, it might be 10% of our budget for the month, for the quarter, whatever. What does that look like for cybersecurity investment?
So great question. Of course, the ranges are very wide, right? I would say for a company that's less than, let's say, 25 employees, on average for the year, I would say for a fiscal year, you're probably looking at spending for I would say a mid-range cybersecurity program, somewhere around 30 grand for the year. It could be higher or lower depending on the needs of the organization, but I'm just kind of basing off of 25 or less employees. You're looking at about that. As you get up there, so let's say 100 or so employees, you're looking at about 70 grand or so, again, 70 to 80 grand, depending on the complexity of your network. And that's really what it comes down to, right? So some companies may just have one office location, a few computers, a firewall, that's it. With everything that's gone on in the past few years, a lot of folks have allowed their employees to be different states, different places, and that creates other vulnerabilities if you don't have it managed right. So then you need a VPN, then you may need a couple of firewalls, then you may deal with other state requirements for cybersecurity. So that's why I say these rough numbers, because other things come into play with that. But on average, what I've seen, our companies that are 25 or less, for the year, you're looking at around that 25, 30 grand or so to have a full program. And that's with policies, procedures, incident response plans, vulnerability scan, patching, all the things that are needed, as I mentioned in this chat here today, that are needed for a company to, in essence, be proactive with cybersecurity.
Okay. So you mentioned less than 25 employees. What about if you're less than 5 employees or solopreneur, for example?
Yeah.
So we have several folks that we manage systems for that are, it's either them and a friend, maybe, content creators, for example, coaches, and so on.
Yeah, so that's
what kind of strategies can those size look into? Because they're not spending 30 grand on a cybersecurity network program.
No, makes sense. It's so funny you mentioned that. So my smallest client right now that I have, and they've been with me now for, I think, 3 years or so, they have 2 employees. So I definitely know the smallest of the small, and the largest that we work with right now is the U.S. Army. So we go very big or very small. So I would say for that company, they're probably spending around that 8 to 10 grand or so for that. But their goal is they're adding, of course, employees as they go because of their business needs. And they're in the in different kind of popping in different industries. So again, different regulations. So they have other assessments and audits they have to prepare for, which is a little bit unique. But I would say somewhere around there is a good number to be, because about $1,000 a month, less than $1,000 a month, because typically those companies of that size are usually operating out of a website to drive by their business. And of course, website, as you know, can have a lot of vulnerabilities if it's not, not built right, and doesn't have the right programs and processes behind it to make sure it's staying safe. So it's again around that gathering of the clients, prospective clients' information, make sure that's all set, and then their own internal device management, right? Because of course that's their bread and butter. That's what that becomes. Their bread and butter, their devices. So make sure they're patching and paying attention to those. Hey, I got to update. Please reboot, and not saying ignore till tonight. Just doing it. Doing your way stuff.
Yes, and device management can be a real pain.
Yes, I know.
All those birthday passwords. People.
Yes. Yes. Or the ones where it's the post note sitting right next to the laptop.
Yes, please. Please tape your password to the laptop so that you can remember it. Thank you.
Yeah. We have that.
Okay. So you mentioned several frameworks.
Yes.
And I'm sure that our audience is going to look those up. But how do you choose one?
So that's a great question. I get that one often too. So a lot of, more times than not, depending on the industry you're in, they have the best practices for that industry. So as I mentioned, NIST is a framework for almost all of these frameworks. So I would say starting with the NIST cybersecurity framework is a good place to start, right? And let's say, a company may say, hey, well, I want to jump into working with, doing some biz consulting for hospitals. Okay, that sounds great, but then you jump into HIPAA, and HIPAA has cybersecurity requirements. Or, hey, I'm going to go do some events with some local banks. You start tapping into FFIEC with that. Again, they're all based off of NIST, but again, they're NIST plus some, right? So that's why I would say just doing some simple research there. And of course, anyone listening to this or watching this can feel free to reach out. I can also, share what we know about different industries in terms of frameworks. But again, working with a known framework is always best versus trying to come up with your own scoring. That never works. Never works.
All our passwords were changed today, so we're at 10.
Yeah. Not at all.
All right. So we're coming close to time to wrap up.
Okay.
Tell us, please, where does cybersecurity fit in the overall business strategy? We're all talking about, I'm working on my business plan. I know what we do. I know where our market is. They don't, but they say they do.
Yep.
Where do we put cybersecurity? Is it before the finances section or before we start doing anything else? Where do we put that in the plan?
Great question. So it's at the foundation. It's at the foundation. The time your site is being built to when you're figuring out where you're going to store all this data information that is plugged into these forms that they fill out online for you. It literally starts at the foundation of that. Banks now, something that's been changing too, is a lot of banks before they give you financing, again, kind of going to the whole cyber insurance thing too. It's, hey, how is this money going to be used? But more importantly, do you have these things in place in the event of cyber attack? So I'm starting to hear that more too for banks, because of course you have the horror stories of, financing being lost in a good old cyber world with some of these transactions being done, of course, over the web, right? So I would say it's definitely at the foundation of that talk, again, from the time your site is being built. So as you're talking about, hey, this is my roadmap. So roadmap doesn't have cyber there as well, just because it's just better to have a strong foundation than trying to build that foundation on the tail end after you've already built out your company and trying to undo the habits that have already been built.
Right. Okay. Trenelle, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up today?
Yeah. So I'm going to, of course, they'll have these slides and all that so they can read through all this stuff. But I definitely want to talk about, for those that are in Georgia, we're doing a local event for sure, a lunch and learn. Definitely, if they want to come check that out, here's on October 12th. Of course, Cybersecurity Month, right? Talking about HR compliance, government compliance, and cyber compliance, right? They're kind of the three compliances that kind of run a back end of a business. So we're going to talk about that. And then definitely for folks that need to have a cyber assessment done, definitely willing to do a complimentary ones for the folks that are coming through your program here.
Sure. Absolutely. Trenelle, thank you. Thank you. I saw some people I recognized on that last slide. So I look forward to that event. And thank you for joining us for Biz Over Tea, where we sip, strategize, and stay safe as we move forward. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.